Good morning, everyone. We're so pleased that you have joined us for our third Take Heart Ambassador Program offering. Today, I'm so happy to be able to welcome my colleagues, Dana, Stacy, and Chris, to this really important discussion that we've been having. So as we get started, I would love for you to drop your name, location, and what you're hoping to learn from this session in the chat. We want to make sure that we get to your questions, address your concerns and challenges. So please, as we're going along, feel free to drop questions into the chat, but also know that at the end of the session, we will be having office hours. So if you have questions about what we've discussed during this time, if you have something that you would love to have the feedback from your colleagues about, please join us for that. So today we're going to get started by setting the stage for this session, talking about compassionate school mental health practices, talking about how to vision, plan for, and monitor success in implementing compassionate school practices, and then talking about how that intersects with stakeholder engagement. As a reminder, this session is geared towards giving you all tools to advocate for school mental health practices, and collaborations with your own school community. So while we do have some didactic elements of our presentation, we're really focused on delivering concrete tools that you can bring into your own work and practice as advocacy tools. So please feel free to use these slides and make them your own with the information on them. And please do, again, ask questions. So just setting the stage, just very briefly, who are we? If you're new to our offerings and joining us for the first time today, we are part of the New England Mental Health Technology Transfer Center School Mental Health Initiative, which is a very long title for what we do, but our mission is within the New England region to enhance school culture and prepare professionals in education and mental health to improve and support the mental health and well-being of all members of our school communities. We're part of a national network of other school mental health initiatives and MHTTCs. So if you're not in the New England region, you can absolutely contact us. Everything that we offer is free and available, but we can also point you to your MHTTC in your own region. Within the School Mental Health Initiative, our goal is to work together to address and reduce trauma for pre-K through grade 12 schools. So our efforts are designed to help cultivate compassionate school communities that buffer against trauma, support teachers, school staff, students, and families and communities. We are in our 5th year of doing this work. Throughout the first 3 years, we focused on building community within New England, developing resources for our educators, particularly in response to the pandemic, disseminating knowledge, information, trainings, offering a school culture assessment that Chris is going to talk about in a little bit, and building local capacity within New England to have these kinds of conversations and to support school mental health and well-being. Last year, we expanded that to dissemination efforts and engaging our Project Aware colleagues throughout the region, and developing the Heart community of practice, which I'm going to talk to you in just a couple moments about. But as we get started, I offer this information as sort of a grounding and letting you know where we are and where we come from. But I want to turn it over now to Chris Mason to talk about one of the most fundamental concepts in what we're talking about today. Chris?
Good morning. Next slide. So look at this, heart-centered learning. We started our work related to heart-centered learning many, many years ago, probably about in 2010. And from 2014 through 2018, we conducted pilots in 4 sites. And then we began working with the MHTTC in New England. I want to just briefly mention that in fact, if we want to see significant change in what happens, we need to start with conscious awareness, mindfulness. That is the foundation for everything. If students aren't aware of their emotions of peers, they're not aware of what's happening around them. If you as a teacher, an educator, a professional are not aware, it's hard to make the significant change that's needed. From that comes compassion. Compassion is not an easy thing to work on for some kids, for some people. If you've experienced significant trauma, it can be very difficult, really, to enhance your compassion for others. And then there are the other C's: confidence, courage, and community. All we believe are essential to address the significant issues that children and all of us really are facing today. Next slide. Here are some resources to help you. We developed a monograph, A Compassionate School Response to Mental Illness, and also a book together. Both of these resources focus on the importance of the moment-to-moment interactions between those of us who have positions of responsibility, the adults in the situation, and how we interact with children, with others, with families. There's so much we can do, and it isn't all up to a mental health provider or a counselor. There's a lot we can do together.
Thank you so much, Chris. That is really the heart-centered learning, and is really where these compassionate practices are coming out of. And we are together here today in the Heart Collective work based on those practices. The Heart Collective is an extension of our broader work, and it was developed in partnership with SAMHSA and HRSA and community and medical, clinical education partners throughout New England as a way to strengthen and support collaborations between schools and community healthcare providers, so that we can deliver resources that help everybody within communities at large to support mental health and well-being. So that is the initiative from which we are offering our Heart Ambassador training today. And from the heart-centered learning that Chris discussed just a moment ago, and within the Heart Collective work, we developed a model on compassionate school mental health model. If you've joined us for other webinars or trainings or offerings, you might have seen this before. This is the philosophical foundation and model of action that we use to talk about developing compassionate school systems. And you can see it's divided into 4 quadrants that really put youth and families and communities in the center. But it focuses on reducing the causes of trauma, supporting youth where they're at, building resiliency, and developing protective factors. So this will be included in your slide deck that you receive after this. But we hope that you'll come back and think about creating a holistic, youth-centered, student-centered model of school mental health within your own communities. So what does that mean to create a compassionate school community? We feel that it's very important to develop a school and district-wide foundational understanding of the neurobiology of trauma. Without understanding how trauma affects our brains, our bodies, we can't understand the ways that trauma shows up in our schools. And having that understanding is really key to then developing a mindful approach to addressing, reducing these causes, but supporting leaders in building school environments that recognize the effects of trauma, particularly now, in where schools and education is at now. And we feel that it's really important to think about how we can communicate with others outside of our school buildings to do this work. We can't do it by ourselves, which many of you already know and are living, right? It's one of the reasons that you're probably here, is that we need to build collaborations. We need to work together in order to develop compassionate and comprehensive school mental health support systems. But in order to do that, we have to have a vision. We have to have a vision for all of us together, all stakeholders, from families, students, staff, community-based organizations. we all have to work together in order to develop this vision of what our schools can be in supporting our own well-being. Compassionate school practices. If you're interested in learning more about that, we have a lot of resources on our website, and the book that Chris mentioned is a great source of information about how to put these things into practice. But I'm going to leave this slide here. You can go back and look at it because I want to give time to my colleagues to tell you about putting these school practices into action and how to advocate and use the resources that you have in order to do that. And in all of this, we need to really continue to think of, engage, listen to the voices of young people, the voices of our students, the voices of our families in understanding how to do this work. We can't do this without them. You know, there's that saying in disability rights movements, that nothing about us without us, and we feel that this is a really important piece of our work. I'm not sure if this video will work.
Hello, my name is Staeheli, and I am a 10th grader at Colorado High School. I am a mental health advocate and social justice activist. I believe schools and staff should provide families and students with specific mental health resources to best support their needs during this difficult time. I also believe schools should prioritize social emotional learning and help everyone within the community to look at mental health through an all-inclusive, compassionate lens. Teaching students and staff to notice the signs of struggles with peers can not only help identify those who need support, but build stronger relationships between teachers, students, and families overall. Furthermore, I think it would be beneficial if teachers were provided a training program to help them feel more confident with supporting students emotionally in their classrooms. Staff should extend their passion past academics alone and look to engage students in other ways. Social emotional learning is important when we return to school in the fall, as it is essential for students to integrate learning academically and interacting with others empathetically. Social emotional learning can teach students to set new goals for themselves and the community, as well as connect with their own identity, which can be difficult for many to do after so long in isolation. Overall, I believe schools should help students and families return in the fall by prioritizing social connections and peer support.
I hope that you were able to hear that or see that. If you weren't able to, please, again, this video will be included in the slides, but May is a 10th grader. She's now an 11th grader that we worked with who delivers a really compelling message about the importance of student voices in this work, and how crucial it is for kids. They have a deep understanding of these issues, how crucial it is to include them in our work. And if you want to know more about how to deliver content and learning around compassionate school practices and developing compassionate school communities, we offer a free online course. There's a link to it in the slides, so please be sure to check it out. And now I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Champion to talk about putting these ideas into action and advocating for them. Stacy?
Thank you, Martha. Hi, everyone. I am a coach for the multi-tiered system of support framework for behavioral health. Many of you may know that the short version is MTSSB. And for the past 2 years, I've been working on developing a blueprint for this work in our district, setting up all of the systems needed from the district in order to coach the schools on this framework. Next slide. Here's an example of the team-based MTSSB framework that I work on with a school when I'm coaching them. We go through all of the content areas in the green Tier 1 school-wide supports. And initially, I focus on positive behavior supports, ensuring they have an evidence-based social emotional curriculum and that they've established school-wide mental health practices. I also help the team learn how to operate as a team and create action planning and use database decision making so they can implement what they're planning and then evaluate what they're doing to ensure that we're having those positive outcomes that we're looking for our students. And then I move on to working with the targeted intervention team, assessing what interventions are in place, what's missing, and aligning with our community partners who are delivering behavioral health interventions in the school. If we don't do that alignment and we don't do this planning, often we have inefficient delivery of interventions and that are not effective in supporting our students. Next slide, please. I think we can all agree that the need for school-based behavioral health is great. Only 12% of youth with mental health concerns receive treatment, and the brain needs social emotional health to support academic success and learning in the classroom. As Martha mentioned, around the need for being trauma informed in a school and having these social emotional learning and school-wide mental health supports. It's critical so they can be available to learn. Next slide. And 70 to 80% of students who receive mental health services do so in school. So schools really need to focus on establishing a few evidence-based practices across tiers to support social emotional learning, self-regulation, and overall wellness. We want to offer practices or programs in the school environment to help decrease stigma around mental health and improve access to support our students. And we want to intentionally develop these compassionate school environments. When I was developing the blueprint for my district, I followed the National Center for School Mental Health curriculum to ensure we had some key pieces in place. And these pieces support mental health prevention and promotion school-wide. If you're working at the district level, you could form a district team to begin developing some of these practices from a systems perspective, creating an action plan, work on district policy, to advocate for some of these practices from district or in your schools. And next slide, sorry, or click, there you go. And this is a rookie mistake. I put some animations in here because I'm used to driving my own slides. So if you just kind of click through as I talk. So whether you're at the district or school building level, let's see how you can advocate for certain practices that support students with mental health literacy and compassionate school practices. Here are some examples of compassionate school practices that we are intentionally planning and implementing at schools through the coaching practice, ensuring that there's a daily school-wide mindfulness in the schools that we're working with. We are setting up wellness centers in our secondary schools and self-regulation spaces in the elementary schools. And really focusing on mental health literacy, ensuring that students know when to go and where to go for support. We're also focusing on targeted professional development around relationships, development for staff to foster these nurturing adults in our schools and promote a safe and compassionate school environment. So that is another piece that we're bringing into a school that I'm working with that is ready for that really targeted PD to support the teachers, the administrators in the classroom with students. And a simple idea, but was well received by our schools, is I purchased a library of books for every elementary school and every middle school. And what we focused on was mental health topics that were developmentally appropriate. And some of the books also have mindfulness and wellness practices that teachers can or counselors can use with the students. But we wanted to get these library books out there to just reduce stigma and address these topics for students and make it okay to talk about this in the classroom, not just in their small group or counseling sessions. Next slide. Another practice that we implemented at the pilot site school where I started working, at my first school I started coaching, was setting up a self-regulation space in each of the classroom. And we explicitly taught the students when it was okay to take a pause, recognizing their feelings and emotions. We did not want this space to become something difficult for the teachers to manage. So we tied it into our social emotional learning curriculum and really taught them that this is how we use the space when we're feeling a certain way and we need to take time to get back on track to learn. And then we tied it in with a black lab therapy dog, and we have little stuffed animals in each of the sections. So now I have a second school that I am working with, and they are also adopting the same title, Take a Pause, and they're implementing the space in that second elementary school. We have 13 elementary schools, and students move around our city often. So my goal was to try to make something like this systemic. So if they do move to another school, they recognize this practice. And so we're continuing to improve upon it, but I do love this space. Next slide. And here's some resources for you. I work with Keene State Behavioral Health Improvement Institute. That's our technical assistance center here in New Hampshire. And they have tool kits online for district and school level implementation. So if you're at the district level, you can work through some of their tools and guiding documents to give you some direction around implementing school-wide, comprehensive school-wide mental health practices. And if you're at the school level, there's tools there to support you with advocating for some of these practices and how you would do that at the school level. I've also included the list of books for those, the mental health literacy library, as I call it. I spent a lot of time gathering this list together, so I'm happy to share that with you. And that is all.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for those amazing ideas. We do have a question. Is there a toolkit available for pause?
No, but I can share the lesson plans that the school has. I showed on the screen here, but we don't have a specific toolkit. It was something that the tier 1 school-wide team worked on planning with me. And often in this work, you plan and then you implement, and now they're improving upon it. There's always going to be some troubleshooting to do around certain things. So it's a practice that I've worked on with my pilot school, but I'm happy to, if you reach out to me after, to support around that.
And she asks, can she share the slide of pause with her colleagues?
Yes, that's fine.
And please feel free to stay after the session. We have office hours where you can ask questions and get more detailed resources from Stacy and our other presenters if you're looking for something particular or want to see something again. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Chris Mason to talk about visioning, planning, and monitoring for success. Chris?
Okay, next slide. So Stacy, I just want to say self-regulation is a huge, huge concern. So I'm so pleased to see what you're doing. That's really, really exciting. I also want to point out early today, someone mentioned that they're working with adolescents and, what can we do to really connect with them during these times? And I don't know about you, but I know about me. I love working with adolescents. However, it's not always easy. It can be pretty tricky at times. And in fact, they sometimes are uber sensitive, moody, all of those things. And so when we do our work, we do think about the different ages of students and what we can do at various ages to support them and to support teachers, people working with those students. So our vision for the future really has a lot to do with scaling up the things we believe work, the things that Stacy's been talking about, things that Martha described, our compassionate practices. And again, if you think about the neurobiology of all of this, if you have a student who's been impacted by trauma, things are going along pretty well, and then boom, something happens. The student becomes hyper alert or threatened. All the good things that happened up to that point can kind of just drift away with that negative interaction. So again, we really believe a lot of it rests with us in school buildings, administrators, counselors, teachers, and what we can do. So to help with the scaling up and out, the Center for Educational Improvement is now working with Martha and Maria O'Connell at Yale University on a national grant. It's a Compassionate School Leadership Academy. It's funded by the SEED grants with the U.S. Department of Education. And if you look at the top right now, we are doing work particularly with SEL for Massachusetts, so that's in Massachusetts, and MIMSPA, which is the Michigan Elementary Middle School Principals Association. So our focus right at this particular time is on those two states. Next slide. Okay, so I mentioned the initiative. You can go to our CEI website and see links that'll take you to a fuller description of that project. Next slide. Funded by the U.S. Department of Education under a Supporting Effective Educator Development Grant. It's a 3-year project. And in this project, we want to address the urgent mental health needs of students and also build equity and capacity to address diversity by building the pipeline of diverse leaders in schools. We want to also work on making sure that what we do in schools is culturally responsive. And all the things that we've been talking about with the New England MHTTC and our work in terms of looking at SEL. And I know some of you are doing SEL. You know, you've got a program you may have started this year, you may have started a couple of years ago. There's more to providing supports than SEL. It's not just twice a week or implement this program during this particular time, but it's how you thread it throughout the day with everything you're doing. And we really have a system for doing that. To help guide what we have, what we recommend, we have an instrument we developed. Again, the development work started as early as 2014. It's called the School Compassionate Culture Analytical Tool for Educators. I know it's a mouthful. However, basically, it's 40 questions that will guide you in making decisions about what you want to do as a team. It's an empowering tool. We say that if at least 7 staff in your schools take it, you can get some results that are highly valid, highly reliable, and will help you make decisions about what do you do next. It's based on our heart-centered learning model. And next slide. And if you look, we ended up with the statistical analysis coming up with 5 domains: leadership and compassionate school community, conscious awareness of emotions and stress, understanding of equity, confidence and positivity. Think about that, positivity and confidence. 2 things that are really critical to really elevate what happens in schools. Critical, but sometimes overlooked. And courage and resiliency. There's so much we can do to be supportive. We may need to build scaffolds. We need more mental health supports, but there's a lot that can be done. So we encourage you to look at SK and look also for more related to our SEED project and your opportunities to participate. Although we're starting in New England, in Massachusetts and Michigan right now, within the next few months, we're going to go out with a national survey, and we are going to be working with national sites next year in a randomized controlled study. Thank you.
Chris, we have a question about where to find the awareness, the SK, and Ingrid put that link in the chat. Yes, so you can click on that link and learn more about the SK. But we feel like whenever you're implementing any of these types of practices, it's really important to evaluate, to monitor how you're doing as a really key component of implementing these practices and creating that blueprint that Stacy talked about. So thank you very much, Chris. And next, we're going to turn it to Dana to talk about family engagement and building those collaborations.
Thank you so much, Martha. It's great to be back with this audience. I was able to work with this team for several years before transitioning to a new role. If you could go to the next slide. Currently, I am working with the and you can click through. I'm not sure why some of the things are not showing up there. I am now working with the National Federation of Families on family engagement work. We truly believe that families' lived experience is expertise. We sometimes see that families are hesitant to engage with school mental health professionals or even education professionals because of the experiences they had either in the education system, in the mental health system, in the substance use system, as a child themselves or as an adult. And that past experience can sometimes make families feel hesitant to really form a genuine partnership with school mental health professionals. So we want to encourage clinicians, educators, and the general public to really understand that the experience that families have had with their own children and understanding what's happened with their children and what works at home is an expertise that needs to be listened to with just as much importance as the evidence-based practices that we have seen work to help improve that emotional regulation that Chris and Martha talked about that's so important. So we really encourage school-based mental health professionals to use understandable, strengths-based, person-centered language when talking with family members. So really educating yourself on what that looks like and avoiding blaming parents for anything that's happening with their children is really key. We want to make sure that we're on the same page. So not just telling parents what's working at school and what they should be doing at home, but being inquisitive, coming into meetings with wanting to know what is working at home and trying some of that stuff out in the school building as well. We also think it's really important to improve psychoeducation for families. We want to make sure that we're sharing the knowledge that we have with families in a way that's digestible and understandable and also actionable. We know that families are busier than ever these days. So we want to make sure if we are asking them to implement any practices at home, that they are short, easy to replicate, and that they go away with some kind of materials, whether that's an online database of resources, a flyer, a pamphlet, a book, a video, something that they can take home with them so that if they forget the steps of some practice, they can go over it again. We also want to make sure that we are having regular meetings with families. And when we're doing that, we're making sure that it's respectful. We're being intentional about what's going on in those meetings, really planning ahead for something that's not going to just be going over the problems over and over again, but focusing on solutions and strengths. And then making sure that we use positive conflict resolution within those meetings. We have to understand that sometimes the adults don't have those emotional regulation skills that they need to be able to stay present in a conversation where they're hearing some very difficult things about their children. So making sure that we as clinicians, as educators, have tools in our toolkit to be able to have those conversations in a productive way. Next slide, please. So the organization that I work with is called the National Federation of Families. We are a nonprofit that certifies the family peer specialists at a national level. Family peer specialists are people who have already been through an experience where they've cared for a family member with a mental health or substance use challenge in their life. They've then gone and gotten training to be able to work with families who are currently experiencing that. So they don't get the same level of training that a clinician does, but they often do get training in the very same areas, including cognitive behavioral support and other types of positive therapeutic practices. We work with family-run organizations, and those are the organizations that employ these family peer specialists. We have affiliates all over the country, and I've included a link here so that you can find your local family-run organization. You can contact them if you know families that might benefit from having a family peer specialist. Many states' Medicare and private insurance companies do pay for this service. These family peer specialists can come with families to school mental health meetings, but they also help them navigate a variety of child serving and adult systems. So they help navigate the justice system. If a family is without a home, they might be able to help navigate the housing system. If a family needs help getting signed up for food assistance, they can help with that, getting some free transportation, getting them physical health care as well. So family peer specialists really hold a variety of roles and can be really beneficial to families in need. And like I mentioned, they have those evidence-based strategies under their belt. So the next slide, the National Federation of Families was given a grant from SAMHSA to hold the National Family Support Technical Assistance Center. So we are in essence a cousin to the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. And what we do is we support families, family peer specialists, and family-run organizations in making sure that lived experience is centered in mental health and that family voice and youth voice is raised and made just as important as the clinician voice. So we provide technical assistance to states, organizations, agencies, families, and even individuals. We also have a variety of resources, which I've linked here. We have on-demand recorded trainings and live trainings like these. We have 3 different types of live trainings that we'd love to invite you to. Family members could be referred to Family Connections, where we have a very short presentation and then a chance to talk with each other, kind of the way that we're going to do here in just a moment. Our webinars are open to the general public, and those are generally about family mental health, family peer specialists, really educating the clinicians, family members, and others about what we do. And then our office hours are geared towards the leaders in family-run organizations to help them sustain their organizations. Thank you so much for learning about family engagement. And I am going to pop a survey that if you know any clinicians who have recently trained, if they could fill that out, that would be wonderful. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Dana. I mean, I know that we have covered a lot of information over the last 45 minutes. And our goal was really to give you ideas about, if you think about that compassionate school model that I showed towards the beginning of the presentation, thinking about those different quadrants and addressing things like creating a vision and monitoring how you are implementing initiatives and how successful you are, thinking about creating blueprints, planning, and what is actually happening within the classroom and the schools. And as Stacy showed you, it can range from something very simple, like a quiet corner and that amazing list of books that she's provided, to more larger scale, tier 1 types of interventions. And then really thinking about how we are engaging with our families and the kinds of creative use of resources. Many of you may not even have known about a family peer specialist, but they can be really terrific tools to engage with your families and help you through collaboration to deliver the kinds of mental health and well-being types of services that you are implementing in your schools. So now we have some time for some questions and answers. So if you have a question, something that you're working on that you'd love to get feedback, anything about what our presenters have shared with you, please let us know. You can ask in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask. Oh, and you can now open your mics as well. I'm going to take down the slides. Do we have any questions about any of the things that
My name's Justine. How are you?
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. I have a question. I am a program coordinator at a nonprofit, and we do work on mood disorders. And so one of our program offerings that we've had that I've been working with since March, when I joined the team, has been on our addressing teen stress and doing teen stress survival guides, and also talking about teen depression and getting students to recognize the signs of depression. And I love this presentation. And I just wonder, like, what other ways can like other nonprofits look to partner? Sometimes I feel like I'm not using like the right language or something, because I always want to work at it as we're here to support schools, we're here to support students, we're here to support caring adults. So I don't know if you could like talk a little bit about that. I guess that's my question. That is my question. It's like, what is my role in this overarching what's it called, presentation you have? And I loved it, by the way. I think it's great. I this is the kind of stuff that I kind of secretly push for as well at schools, you know, so.
Thank you so much, Jasenia, for that really terrific, important question. And we're so glad you're here participating in this. And so I imagine each of the three of you could talk a little bit about that question, but Stacy, would you like to
Yes.
tackle that?
So the blueprint that I've been working with has been primarily at elementary. However, I do have someone working with me now who is branching out into the middle school level, and we are doing an assessment of who is in our community to support student behavioral health and start bringing them to the table to meet with us to see where we can collaborate at the middle school level, and then we will do that at the high school level. So I would recommend reaching out to administration in a school building or starting at the district SAU office and meet with someone and talk about what you have to offer to support student behavioral health and mental health in the schools, and maybe where you could collaborate either at the school building level or at the district level to start working on maybe one piece of a plan that you could work together on, something simple that you can implement and work together and then build off of.
Thank you. I like that.
I have a quick question. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Carolyn, is it? Carolyn?
Yeah. Hi. So I work at one of the high schools in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I'm noticing a lot that a lot of the problems that kids are having as far as like attendance issues go, especially attendance issues, is that their mental health is kind of a big barrier. They're not actually mental health and physical health too. They're not really going to classes because they're not in the right kind of mental health mind state, I would say. And you know, I'll go to 504 meetings and stuff, and you know, we'll get them into you know, mental health treatment or counseling and stuff, and then they'll get their diagnosis and put them on a 504, and they're just still not going to class. So my kind of take on this is that we kind of need like a mental health first model, if, you know, just my idea type thing. I didn't know if you guys had any resources on that or something that I could do to kind of help. You know, during these 504 meetings and stuff, I just see a lot of like guidance counselors and things like that, and they're very focused on getting the kid to class. And my thoughts are kind of like, the kids aren't going to class because they're depressed or they're anxious or they're dealing with trauma at home. You know, they're not going to class. They're not going to go unless they're feeling good. I didn't know if you guys had any kind of resources or any feedback about that.
I could jump in really quick again. Are you with the Office of Youth Services in our
I
district?
am, yeah.
So I am not quite at your school yet. I was at the board last night.
Oh,
So
good.
we're working at elementary primarily, and like I just mentioned, I do have someone now that we're scaling up to middle school. So this model will eventually be at your school as we build capacity at the district level to coach the schools. And this behavioral health intervention team, you would be a seat at the table. So part of the system that we are working on is we screen every couple of weeks for early warning indicators, which are student attendance. We're looking at office referral data and nurse visits. And that's an automatic referral to the team. And then they develop a plan for the student, which is implemented. And there's just a lot of oversight, more oversight with these team-based structures. So happy to talk with you outside of this webinar on this and what we're working on at the district level in Manchester.
Absolutely. Will your email or anything be on this email thread or anything?
I'll put it in the chat right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Kristen, Dana, I wonder if you might be able to address that that question too about the idea of.
Let
Yeah,
me
it's
just,
not-
yeah,
Yes.
let me speak briefly. Then I see that Pamela Becker, also with New Hampshire, has her hand raised. So I imagine she may have some New Hampshire information.
Yes,
But,
I do.
We
If you don't, okay,
Could
you
I
want
go
to go?
first?
Sure, go
Pamela?
ahead.
Okay. So at the Center for Educational Improvement, we have a website and a newsletter. The newsletter is called Heart Mind E-News. And last month, I wrote an article on anxiety and dysregulation. I'm writing one again for the newsletter that will come out next week. We're going to be doing a series on this. Part of my thesis is that, in fact, kids are disengaged and dysregulated, partly because they just don't want to be at school, okay? They aren't used to being in one place all the time and sitting in chairs upright for 6 hours. So one of the things that we can do is to focus, we certainly should focus on mental health needs. Everything Stacy said is really true, but additionally, think about what you could do to listen to students, to have very engaging classes so that they have choices. We're doing projects that they like. And then we need to back off of some of the things that were just overdone, like too much tracking of assignments, which could cause kids to be more depressed if in fact they find that they've dug this hole for themselves and they're missing 20 assignments in a class. The depression gets worse. So if you can think about the milestone classes, the things that are, or assignments that are really critical, grade those, and then ease up a little on the others, I think you're going to have a better chance of those kids just being engaged with you, feeling that they've been heard and that they're working with you. So that's the educator in me saying, hey, listen to the kids. Can we go to Pamela?
First, I just want to draw your attention to a resource that Dana put in the chat for the National Dropout Prevention Center, which has some resources. So I just didn't want you to miss that in the chat thread. And now, Pamela?
Hi, I'm with the Department of Ed at New Hampshire, and we and specifically the Office of Social Emotional Wellness. And we have our program is designed around MTSSB, and we have 4 coaches on staff that work throughout the state with any school district that is interested in working with MTSSB, and will work with any school district. We primarily, any schools that end up getting funding through us from any of the federal funders, we also obviously work with them as well, but we also have free coaches that will work with anyone. So if you are looking for resources, I'll be glad to put my email in the chat, and you can reach out to us. Our coaches are always reaching out with overviews of MTSSB or how they can help you get from one tier to the next, or building your district level teams, or however it is that where you're stuck or where you need. So it's, you know, I realize that, you know, you're all working at different levels, at different areas and different stages. So, but they're very well experienced and very enthusiastic. And so, and we have toolkits, we have books, we have resources, we have a great website, newsletters, things like that. So I'd love for you to become connected to the state, because we're always looking to support all areas of the state in this work.
These are awesome. Thank you guys so much. It's just last year, I think, was so hard, just because, especially the freshman classes. I actually I work at 2 of the high schools, and I think the freshman class was so hard because mentally they were basically 7th graders. They hadn't been in class in a year and a half or 2 years. So they didn't know how to adjust to being around people or being told what to do and things like that. So I think their, behaviors, and they didn't know how to be social or, have even authority, teachers and administrators. So I definitely think the morale has gone down and it's affecting grades and attendance. And I think you are definitely right. I'm not sure who it was that said it. The fact that they just don't want to be in school. And what I've been seeing as well, just one quick thing, is that a lot of the kids in the high schools want to take the high set now, which is the former GED. And they're getting on the wait list, so they're not going to class anymore. And it's hard to just get them motivated to go. So I'll definitely be checking out all the resources. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. We know that you all are coping with some amazing and profound challenges in trying to not only educate kids, but also support their well-being and by extension, their families' well-being. I want to take just a couple minutes to let you know, for those of you who are leaving at the close of the hour, I want to let you know about what's coming up in this series. But if you have more questions, want more discussion, please hang out with us after we close this session for office hours. We would love to hear more about your experiences, what kinds of resources you're looking for. But for now, I want to let you know about the rest of our Take Heart training series, which is designed to give you some of those strategies and tools and resources that you need to help spread the word about the importance of comprehensive school-based mental health services and to build those collaborations and networking. So please, if you haven't signed up, please sign up for the remainder of our sessions and join us to access professional development around compassionate school practices, advocacy, fundraising, communications and engagement strategies, talking points, infographics, and other materials. Our goal is to arm you with this information so that as you are building these connections, you have the resources that you need to let people know about how important this is. And please also take advantage of our CE credits, connecting with experts and building community through some of the things that we offer in our website. I think that Ingrid has put that in the chat, but learn about other opportunities that we are going to be offering, including our February 9th session on activating your power, how to operationalize stakeholder engagement. And then in March, compassion in action, school-based mental health advocacy strategies and tips. All of our sessions are at the same time with an office hour afterwards. And we will be, as we go along, also sharing additional resources and other upcoming events. I just want to direct your attention to some of the other resources that we offer, including the National School Mental Health Best Practices Implementation Guidance that Stacy mentioned earlier in our presentation. This is a really comprehensive step-by-step guide with lots of resources and connections for all aspects of building mental health, comprehensive school-based mental health systems. And also, I want to direct your attention to Classroom Wise, which is a free, very short course on well-being information and strategies for educators. It's appropriate for anybody in your school community, or really anybody in a youth serving system who wants to increase mental health literacy. There are lots of ways that you can take this class, but it is free. And we also have a technical assistance opportunity as part of Classroom Wise, which is an initiative that we developed within the MHTTC network. It's free. They're inviting 20 schools across the United States to engage in this technical assistance opportunity, which gives you access to resources, consultation, training to help implement mental health literacy programming, and increase the mental health literacy of your school communities. So it's a really great opportunity if you're interested in doing that within your school community. And as we get ready to close out, I want to invite you to take this very brief survey, which again, our funding comes from SAMHSA, which requires us to evaluate our services and offerings. So please do click that survey to give us feedback about this session today. We appreciate your honest, anonymous feedback, which will provide information to SAMHSA and assist us in planning future meetings and events. Your feedback counts, and we would really love for you to take this. Attendees providing their email address will also receive this survey 24 hours after the close of today's event, along with a video of today's event and the slide presentation. If you have any other questions or need more information, please contact us at the New England MHTTC. You can contact either Ingrid or me via email, and we can help point you in the right direction. So now I am going to take down the slides. If you are leaving us to move on with the rest of your day, thank you so much for being here. We're so glad that you attended, and we hope that you got some ideas and some inspiration for continuing the really important work that you're doing.